All right, thank you everyone for joining us on Golden Ticket Connections. This is episode 6, and I have Randy Thomas today. A little bit about Randy. She is a user experience designer. She's had quite a bit of experience in UI and UX design. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So Randy, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. So to start off, I just wanted to kind of figure out, is this something that you always wanted to do, starting school, or was it something that you kind of learned to like over time?
Kind of yes, kind of no. So I've always been,
Yeah, so it looks like she's had quite a bit of experience in UI and UX design. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So Randy, thanks again for coming on.
yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. So to start off, I just wanted to kind of figure out, is this something that you always wanted to do, starting school, or was it something that you kind of learned to like over time?
Kind of yes, kind of no. So I've always been really interested in art my whole life. And I had to figure out like how I could still do art, but still make a living, make an income.
Right.
I originally went to school with the intention of becoming like an art teacher. At the time when I was in school, they were cutting a lot of art programs and art teaching jobs were pretty limited and far and few in between. So I went to a community college called Monroe Community College in Rochester, New York, and I took fine arts there, just kind of getting my basic classes done and some other additional art classes as well. And so I got my associates in fine art from there. And then I transferred to a college called Nazareth College, also in Rochester, New York, um, and decided to continue my education there. Actually, a funny story is when I went in to do my portfolio review to get into college, I had been intending to do something like art therapy with mine,
Wow.
like art education and trying the dual major. And
Hmm.
I decided to change my mind the day of the portfolio review. And I
Oh
go up
man.
to like this little like desk thing, and they're just like, "Oh, you're here for the portfolio review. Like, what's your major?" And I was like, I don't know what came over me, but I was like, I said, it was like, "Oh, actually, it's supposed to be graphic design." So I kind of lied out my butt a little bit in that moment. But
That's
it
so
never
funny.
really caught up to me, which was good because they were like, "Oh, okay, no problem. Just like fill out this form here to change your major." And
Hmm.
I'm like, "Okay." So I went to the portfolio review with just like a lot of studio art type of things in there. Um, they ended up accepting me and they were like, "Yeah, your first 2 semesters are going to be pretty tough because you're going to have to make up some classes that you should have taken if you had
Hmm.
the intention to do this in your sophomore year." And it was tough because I was taking, graphic design one class the same time as like a really intro level, like digital imaging class. Um, and I really just like threw myself in there and got after it. So I remember like the first like 2 months of school was a lot because I was learning all new programs in addition to
Right.
having just normal projects that
Hmm.
someone in their sophomore year should have been doing, but I was taking at the same time like freshman year design classes simultaneously. So luckily I was able to learn quickly and catch up. But yeah, and in the end, the technical major that they call is like visual communications design. It's just kind of fancy wording for graphic design with a little bit of
Hmm.
marketing. So
Gotcha. That's
yeah.
yeah, that's so interesting. Where did graphic design come from? You just blurted out graphic design, where.
Well, my mother was a graphic designer growing up.
Okay.
When I was a young kid, she worked part time as a graphic designer. She does wedding cakes for a living. Now she transitioned into owning her own business and doing that. So I always like thought about doing graphic design, but I was being kind of stubborn when I was younger and wasn't sure if I wanted to follow like the same footsteps as my mother. And I kind of just changed my mind last second because I was like, well, there are like a lot more jobs in it. Maybe it's different than I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'll just give it a go, I guess. I ended up really liking it, so I don't have any regrets.
Mm-hmm. So basically, what you're telling me is you're glad that you changed your major.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I'm glad that I
Gotcha.
didn't stay in like the same narrow mindset that I had began college with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Not that I
So,
don't think I would have been happy with art therapy or art teaching, but
mm-hmm.
I just wouldn't really change what happened.
Yeah. And so, um, so did you end up doing some internships? It looks like you did a few. How did those go, and how did that end up helping you land a job when you graduated?
Yeah, I did a few different internships. So I did two different ones with nonprofits that were in the Rochester area. I did one call that was with a nonprofit called the Young Entrepreneurs Academy, and that was a lot of creating posters and social media posts for the organization. And overall, it's just like good to have work experience.
Mm-hmm.
Another one I did was with it's called Bavona Child Advocacy Center, and they they worked a lot with like children who had been in like abuse cases, and kind of was like a central place where law enforcement and lawyers and everyone could like record them telling their story, so they're not having to say it over and over again. um,
Mm-hmm.
Really traumatic for kids. So I worked a lot with their marketing team there and helped them plan large events that they had for fundraisers and things like that. And then my third one was I worked for the college, the student activities committee, and that was a lot of just like really fun posters for events happening on campus, and things like that. So all those like really they introduced me to other people at other colleges and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the ones off campus. They introduced me to other students from local colleges. In Rochester, it was Rochester Institute of Technology was one. There was Brockport University. So it really provided a lot of networking opportunities to meet with other people, with hopes that those connections would help me later down the road. I did end up moving away from the Rochester community, so I'm not as ingrained in that as I had hoped I
Mm-hmm.
would
Right.
be. But it's still really good practice, right, to be working with other people and hearing their feedback and being able to act on that feedback and make changes.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah, I liked that you mentioned networking. I know for me, when I was interning, that's what I really tried to do is just get to know people within the company because you never know, those connections might help you later on. And it's just interesting to me that a lot of students, they put off internships. They don't realize how important internships can be. Um, so I think that's cool that you're able to do a few internships and get that under your belt. Um, so moving on to your very first job, what was your very first job like? And did you like it? Did you hate it? How did that go?
So, like, are you asking my very first, like,
Like after graduating?
after
Yeah,
college? So, like,
after
okay,
college.
post
Mm-hmm.
grad college. My very first job as I was a junior web designer for a company called Zag, and they were in the consumer electronics space. Their most popular brand was like Invisible Shield, which is screen protectors for your phone. And they
Okay.
had like at the time they had like a few audio brands. There's like a speaker brand called Braven, a like earbuds brand called
Mm-hmm.
iFrog, and then we had like a portable battery company called Mophie. So that was I really enjoyed working there actually. I worked there for almost 5 years.
Oh wow.
And really learned a lot in my time there. I started as like a junior web designer and
Mm-hmm.
moved on up to an associate level. Unfortunately, like just shy of like the 5 year mark, they had a mass layoff, and I was like me and 110 other people who were laid
Oh
off from the
man.
company. So
Sorry to hear that.
I
That
mean,
sounds like it
it's
would have
okay.
Yeah.
all old news now at this point, but
Yeah. Right.
I would feel more personally affected if it was just me, but it was, a lot of
Right.
other
What
individuals
can you
too.
do, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was a bummer, but it really made me edit my portfolio and seek other opportunities. So yeah, I really loved that role there. Like the people I worked with were super creative, super talented. A lot of the people there were really, really kind. Um, it was a pretty good like work life schedule. And I met one of my mentors there that I still speak to from time to time. So
Okay.
yeah.
Very cool. Now, I know, since graphic design is very visual, you mentioned, a portfolio. Um, was that something that you created after those 5 years, once you left that company, or did you already
Um,
have one?
no, I already had one. So when you're in design school, you're constantly creating projects for your
Right.
portfolio. And at least at my college, at your last semester, you had a class called like portfolio review, where you essentially dedicated like a whole semester to perfecting your portfolio. So when you came in the interview, you would be prepared for
Mm-hmm.
whatever job that you were applying for. So I had a website created and I had some projects from internships and from classes and stuff to show off my different skill sets. And when I had applied to that job, I just saw it on LinkedIn. I had a few cities in mind that I wanted to move to possibly. So I just applied like crazy to all these
Mm-hmm.
different places. I really only it was only like 2 months after I graduated that I didn't have like my big girl job, as I call it.
Right.
So when I got that one, they had me do a design test, which is pretty common in the designer space. And it's usually like a mock project that's meant to take you like a few hours, right, to show your skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's like pretty normal for like junior designers, entry level positions, because they need to make sure that you know what you're talking about and and that you're
Mm-hmm.
actually as talented as you're showing in your portfolio. So, because since there's not a whole lot of like work experience to back up that skill set.
Sure. Yeah, that seems kind of difficult. So those projects, did you have to do multiple of those when you're getting those interviews, or was that kind of like the last step of the interview?
And that for that company, it was just one project. So it was like
One
the
project.
last step. I think it was
Okay.
2 interviews, and then they gave me my design test, and from based on what I did with the design test, they decided to hire me or not. So
Okay. And did you have to do a lot of, design tests for other companies you're applying for? Or?
later on in my career, yeah, not
Okay.
for this one though. I got pretty lucky. That was only like the third interview I had had because I had
Right.
had like interviews with ad agencies in Rochester. I
Okay.
unfortunately didn't get those roles, but yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so you said, as a junior, you usually have to take those. Once you get to the point you're at, if you were to move to another company, would you have to take another test with whoever you're interviewing with?
It depends on the company. Personally, I disagree with design tests at a certain level. To me,
Yeah.
if you have 8, 10 years of experience,
Right. You have a big portfolio, I'm assuming.
you have
So.
a portfolio, you have a website, like you should be able to tell from those case studies and
Hmm.
what they have available if they would be a good fit or not. Obviously, you should go through interviews because personalities are different, but I personally feel that once you're at higher positions, you shouldn't have to do that. Um, Depends on the company, though; they still ask for it. Nowadays, if somebody asks for it, I I'm pretty like I'm pretty not cooperative. I guess I would say with that because generally, if they're asking for that, it's not really a place you want to work.
Right. Yeah,
In
I
my
mean, if they can't see your value in what you've already done, then does
Yeah,
it really make sense to do that? Plus,
Yeah,
are they going to take your work for free? You know?
precisely. And that happened to me once later in my career. So that's why I'm kind of like hesitant to do work for free because
Hmm.
they can just, there's nothing saying that they can't take your work at that point.
Right.
One of the companies, I had a lot of watermarks I added to it, so they couldn't steal it. And then they were like, "Well, we won't move you forward in the interview process unless you take them off." And I'm like, "Well,
What?
I guess I'm not moving forward."
That's wild. So is that something you learned later on to put waterwork or watermarks on
Oh
your work?
yeah, yeah. Because after I got laid off from Zag, I had an interview with a company in Salt Lake. It was like a beauty brand, I'll say.
Uh-huh.
And they had me design some emails and ads. And like, sure enough, like a few months later, I subscribed to their email list and I saw the things I designed
No
in there.
way.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's not much you can do about it because it's not like there's any paper trail or
Hmm.
paperwork like proving that they did it because they changed like a few small things. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I was told by other people that it's not really worth pursuing, especially because by the time I saw it, I was employed
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah. Wow. Just what was the feeling, seeing that and you're like, you know what, I created that. I gave them
I
the
was
idea.
frustrated for sure. I was super frustrated because I spent a lot of time at that particular company interviewing. I probably
Hmm.
spent like about like 3 or 4 hours just in interviews, let alone the project that
Sheesh.
took me 2 hours. So I was pretty frustrated because I just felt like they were giving me the runaround.
Yeah, understandably. Yeah, I would be very frustrated if I saw that. I'd be like, you know what? What the heck? I
Yeah,
designed that.
yeah.
Um, but so, I've as I've been applying, or I guess earlier when I was applying for a full-time position, um, they had me do projects, and I'm a marketing major, so it was kind of the same thing, like kind of designing um some logos or doing some work.
Hmm.
And it was all just kind of a test, right?
Yeah.
So you never know if they're just gonna take your stuff and run with it. So that's kind of scary. Um, but anyways, moving on, I was interested to hear more about your role that you're currently working in. What do you enjoy about it? What's difficult about it? You kind of
Yeah.
explain that.
So my current role is I'm a UX designer. The way our company is separated is every designer is over a product line. So my product line is FeatherSnap. Uh, it's an app for bird watchers. So there's a physical product, which is a bird feeder with a camera in it, and it takes pictures of birds as they visit your feeder, and you can identify them with AI and log them into like a bird book. So you're kind of collecting birds like Pokemon, and there's different facts that you can learn about the birds, and you can reference the images later and share them and things like that. And with each like bird that you're logging, you're earning badges and points within the app. So you're incentivized to keep logging photos. Are you still there?
Gotcha. Yeah, it
Okay.
looks like my video froze for some reason, so
Okay.
I don't know
Yeah.
what happened. But
No, you're
that sounds interesting. So is there any way you would be able to maybe show us some of your work that you've done? Or
um
or can you not
Yeah,
do
I
that?
mean, I can show what's already been released. So we have a whole website even that I could show. This is our website for the camera. So you can buy your feeder and camera. It's actually quite large. It's like the size of like a small moving box, which was a surprise to me when I got it because we were just seeing renders of it for so long, so we didn't know really what it would look like. This is kind of your home screen. So it takes 3 images of the birds that visit your feeder, and you have a capture set, is what we're calling it snaps. And
Hmm.
it also has videos as well. And So it gives you like HD quality photos, and then you have your bird book with like your different birds that you have logged. And it's pretty durable. It's solar powered, so you don't have to worry about charging it and things like that. And these are just like, this is one of like the images that people have captured. And then you use AI to identify it. So it's essentially, this is your bird feeder, and then there's a subscription plan that goes along with it.
Oh, that's so cool.
We actually have like an ornithologist on staff who's working on gathering like requirements for each bird. So everything that's like in the bird book, it's not like every bird on the planet, right? Because not every bird is going to visit your feeder. It's just birds that you might see visiting your feeder. And then you are able to like filter by region, and we're adding hummingbirds soon. So you'll be able to like see different hummingbirds that visit your feeder as well. So it's going to be pretty cool. And we're actively working on adding more features as time goes on. I unfortunately can't show much more than what's currently released, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. So you designed the whole website then,
Yeah, I
or
designed
just
the
okay?
website. There's like a web portal for the app to mostly to manage your subscription. And then I designed all the interactions that are in the app. So if you go to like the app store, it gives you like more screenshots of
Mm-hmm.
what you can see. We have pretty good reviews so far. We just started, so we're still working on getting users. We will be in Cabela's by Christmas, so we should get a lot more users around that time.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, cool. And so as far as like the technical um part goes, when or how did you learn how to mess with the app, figure out how to make it user friendly and things like that? Because you started as a graphic designer. How did you end
Yeah.
up learning that?
Yeah. So I started my career in web design, which is pretty adjacent to
Okay.
UX. So I started out doing marketing projects, and my mentor I met at Zach, he gave me a lot of opportunities to work on user experience projects. At the time I was there, we did a re-platform, um, basically a whole redesign of the e-com site when I worked there. And that was pretty extensive. So he had me redesigning like product detail pages and helping with the cart and checkout. And I was really involved in a lot of meetings, saw how he was speaking, and he recommended like quite a few books. So I honestly have done like a lot of reading and courses on my own. There's a really good course course like platform I recommend called Design Plus Code. And those are really great because they have you do it's like project-based learning. So you're given a project and you're reading, you can watch video, you can do just audio, and you are working alongside it. So and for me, that's like how I work best, is doing the projects like in the moment, not so much just watching a video or reading about it. I like to have some guidance along with it and have like a goal to complete by the end. Um, when I was at Zag, a program called Sketch came out, which was a precursor to Figma, which we use now. Figma is essentially the same as Sketch, except Figma was a bit earlier to the punch of being able to collaborate while designing. So no matter where you are, it's like Google Sheets kind of, where like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people can work on the same document at once. So Figma was really the first one that I know of to allow that. So the two programs were very similar, and I was essentially just working for the company, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to be using this program." So I kind of learned on the fly, a lot of YouTube videos, and um, learning those programs. And of course, I learned the normal Adobe programs in college through my classes, and there's a lot of crossover with those. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, if you know like Illustrator, I would say in Photoshop on like a working level, you can kind of figure out how to use Figma or any other design program. There's a lot of things that are the same, even if they're created by different companies.
Mm-hmm. No, that's super impressive that you kind of took it and self-learned, so, or self-taught yourself. So um that's cool. Um so do you work a lot on the app side, or is it
With
just something that you do? Sorry.
development or just design?
So do you do any development work, or is it just design?
I know a little bit of development. It's important, at least in my role, to understand what's possible and what's not with code. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely wouldn't say I'm very skilled as like say my coworkers are.
Right. You definitely want to stay in design. Is that kind of where you see
Yeah.
yourself? Okay.
Yeah, I see myself staying in design. I eventually one day want to transition into higher ed and start teaching design to other people.
Mm-hmm.
At least in like the tech world, like it's pretty fast paced, and I'm not sure if I'll want to do that forever. I'd like to slow down a little bit, and I really enjoy mentoring other people. Like I have some coworkers and stuff that I mentor right now to help them learn. So I would really like to do that in like, I don't know, maybe like 10 or 15 years or something. But
Mm-hmm. And I noticed that you do some freelancing on the side. Do you currently do that? Or was that something in the
not a lot,
past?
unfortunately. I've been really busy in my personal life the last like 2 years. I used to do a lot more of it, but I haven't been doing it a lot. Uh, just like getting this app out the last year and a half has kind of fried my brain. Um,
Yeah. Was it something that you enjoyed, taking on a bunch of different clients, or do you enjoy being in-house?
I prefer being in-house. Freelance, it's very touch and go. Sometimes you have a lot to do, sometimes you don't have much to do. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was pretty inconsistent income. I just kind of like did it on the side. If I had like a former coworker who's at another company who needed some extra work done, companies often they just reach times in their calendar year where they have more work than they can handle. So it would be helpful in those instances for them to hand off extra work to me and I would do it.
Mm-hmm. As of right now, you're kind of putting a pause to that, or are you going
Yeah,
to?
definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Um, so I know we're getting close to time. I wanted to kind of move into some advice. Do you happen to have, what would your advice be to someone who is currently in school, who is looking into going into graphic design? What kind of skills should they be learning right now?
One really important thing to know when you're a designer actually has nothing to do really with design. Just be able to take feedback and try not to take it personally. I think early in my career, I spent a lot of time being offended by what people are saying. And you just have to keep in mind that it's not personal. They're not attacking you as an individual. It's just their vision for the project. And if you have a better vision instead of being combative, it's better to come to them with a solution rather than come back with like, I just don't like that. Because then it makes you seem like difficult to work with, and you don't want that. You don't want that kind of reputation in a company. You want to be known as somebody who can problem solve, not as somebody who you have to argue with every step of the way.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I love that. And how do you go about taking feedback positively. When someone has a completely different vision than you design something, you love it, and they don't want to go with your design.
So I try not to present anything that I'm not okay with somebody choosing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which sometimes your hands are forced a little bit into choosing something that you're not necessarily proud of. But a lot of times I try to only show what I'm proud of, because if you show something that you're not proud of, chances are they'll choose it. I don't know why. It's just the way of the world. um, don't show anything you don't like, because then they'll choose it. So I try to avoid that, but I try to keep in mind that that this is their project. They're paying you to provide a service, and it is your job to do what they are asking for at the end of the day. You can say like, "Hey, it's my recommendation," or "It's in my experience and expertise, I would do it because of X, Y, and Z reasons." But if in the end they choose to ignore that, they choose to ignore that, and they're aware of the consequences. As long as you do your job of communicating what will happen if they choose wrong, then it's kind of out of your hands if they don't listen to you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which it doesn't happen too often. So it's, yeah, you really just have to advocate for your design and explain why you did it that way, why it's important.
Gotcha. And is there anything else that you would say, maybe, specific classes or technical skills that they could pick up while in college?
There's so many books out there regarding design. Don't Make Me Think by Max Krug is a good one. It's not necessarily, it does talk a little bit about user experience in the sense that like everything you use in this world has a has an experience to it. Like one really good example is, so like how you get like a ketchup bottle and there's one that's glass and it's really hard to get the ketchup out. Then there's like, the squeeze bottle. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like one example of like, oh, the squeeze bottle is a better user experience than the glass one. But a lot of people like the aesthetics of a glass one. So it teaches you, try not to get too caught up in aesthetics all the time. And I'm not saying you can't ever have a product that's beautiful, but your main goal is to make that product a joy to use, not make it annoying.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of really great books out there. There's so many good like TikTok creators and YouTube creators putting out content constantly. Yeah, there's just a lot out there if you're seeking it out. Again, that design and code courses, I think the subscription's only like $16 a month. It's pretty inexpensive, and you could learn a lot of skills that are relevant in tech right now. One thing that I think colleges aren't able to keep up with is providing like coursework that's relevant to today's world, because tech is changing so fast all the time. There's new programs coming onto the market all the time. It's impossible for these professors to know everything if they're not currently in the workforce. So I would encourage people to keep up with best practices and standards. There's another thing called ADP List, and you can meet mentors from other companies there and schedule like one-on-one 1-hour meetings with them to get career advice or project advice or anything. There's a variety of mentors on there from large companies, like Twitter and Adobe, and they speak different languages. So you could
Mm-hmm.
meet people from other countries, even if you're interested. And I've met with like a few people from there, and that's been super helpful to hear other perspectives on how UX design is different in like, say some large tech organization in California. It's also
Mm-hmm.
good networking too, because if they enjoy you, then maybe they'll recommend you for a position at their company.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you personally keep up with all the trends and like
Um,
the new
I
technology coming out?
I'm pretty I'm working in it constantly. A lot of times there's just different design problems that I come across, and as silly as it sounds, I type into Google like, what is the best practice for this? And then I start reading articles on it because I don't want to make the wrong decision. We have the internet at our fingertips. We have a lot of things available for us to learn. So why wouldn't we use those tools to seek that out?
Hmm. I like that. Well, we are just about out of time. Um,
Yeah.
do you have any last advice to maybe someone who is just about to graduate, looking for their first job? Um,
I would I would kind of like treat all these applications as a numbers game and try not to let it get to you if you're not getting these interviews. You just have to believe that, like, eventually it will work out. So, and if you find you're like several months in, still not getting any interviews at all, like maybe it's time to make some changes, see what people
mhm,
who are pros, what they're showing in their portfolio, and try and emulate your portfolio to match that. Because chances are they know a thing or two if they have those projects in their portfolio. Um, yeah, and honestly, getting like internship experience in school is super helpful.
mhm. Yeah, I love that. I recently landed my first job, and I remember just all the time just waiting, and everyone was telling me, "Oh, you're gonna land a job, just, be patient." And that seemed like the hardest thing, everyone just telling you just be patient. Um in the moment it seems so hard, but yeah, I love that advice. And if you're not hearing back, then maybe there's something that you could do better to make you more marketable. So, um thanks for that. And I just wanted to end off. Thanks everyone for tuning in to episode 6 with Randy Thomas. Randy, thanks again for coming on and talking more about what you do.